We begin the day with Otto Warmbier. If his life had taken an expected course, we would probably not know his name and we would not be reporting his tragic death. The 22-year-old American died yesterday. Doctors say that he had suffered severe brain damage in North Korea. And that is where he spent the last year and a half, a prisoner, sentenced to hard labor for allegedly stealing a poster. Well, last week, Warmbier was suddenly returned to the U.S. in a coma. Why he was in a coma, we can only guess. The North Koreans have blamed it on a sleeping pill. Now, we want to show you some of the last images of Otto Warmbier, which came out of North Korea, and we do have a warning, they are disturbing. Well, for the family of Mr. Warmbier, those images can only confirm the suspicions that North Korea did terrible things to their son, leading to his death. Today, U.S. President Trump was asked about the death of Warmbier. He implied that former President Barack Obama was responsible for the young man's death. Take a listen.
It's a total disgrace what happened to Otto. That should never, ever be allowed to happen. And frankly, if he were brought home sooner, I think the result would have been a lot different. He should have been brought home that same day. The result would have been a lot different. But what happened to Otto is a disgrace. And I spoke with his family. His family is incredible, what they've gone through. But he should have been brought home a long time ago. Thank you.
Well, in a moment, I'll ask one of the world's top authorities on North Korea what he makes of Trump's slam on Obama. But first, we have this report which takes us from North Korea to the U.S. state of Ohio, the home of Otto Warmbier.
Otto Warmbier was on the way home when North Korean authorities stopped him. That was in January 2016. He apologized on camera and repeatedly begged to come home.
How I have made the worst mistake of my life. Save this poor and innocent scapegoat.
The college student was accused of stealing a propaganda banner, probably a prank which ended up going horribly wrong. Authorities sentenced him to 15 years with hard labor. They sent him back just over a year later, but his family discovered to their horror he was in a coma. North Korea blamed a combination of sickness and medication.
Even if you believe their explanation of botulism and a sleeping pill causing the coma, and we don't, there is no excuse for any civilized nation to have kept his condition secret and denied him top-notch medical care for so long.
In Otto's U.S. hometown, the mood not surprisingly somber.
I'd like to ask that we take a moment or have a moment of silence in Otto's memory.
U.S. President Donald Trump condemned North Korea as a brutal regime, saying Washington would protect the innocent from governments that did not respect human decency. Pyongyang's only ally, China, called it an unfortunate incident and called on both sides to resume talks. The North is holding another 3 U.S. citizens and 6 South Koreans.
Well, I'm joined now by Aidan Foster Carter. He's an author and journalist who has spent 4 decades observing and reporting on both North and South Korea. Mr. Foster Carter, welcome back to the day. It's good to see you. President Trump today implied that former President Obama is responsible for Otto Warmbier's death. What did you think when you heard that?
I resisted the urge to throw up. I think that it's very, very distasteful to milk a tragedy like this, a terrible personal tragedy for the Warmbier family, in a political way, when President Trump cannot possibly know, as none of us know, the full facts of the circumstances. Kudos, having said that, kudos to President Trump when the word came through very belatedly from the North Koreans sometime in the last few weeks that this young man was in a coma. He did spring into action. It may be that history will judge that President Barack Obama's policy of so-called strategic patience, which was a bit like ignoring North Korea as if it would go away, hoping it would go away, didn't help generally and didn't help poor Otto Warmbier in particular. But I must say, I think it's a very unfortunate to politicize it in quite that stark way. This is a human tragedy, and North Korea is incredibly difficult to deal with.
And, you know, we don't have any of the details about why North Korea decided to hand over Warmbier to the U.S. Today, the White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, he said that the U.S. president had worked hard to secure Mr. Warmbier's release. I mean, knowing the North Korean regime as you do, would you characterize the decision to release Mr. Warmbier as a voluntary decision that was made by the regime, or would you say that Mr. Trump was able to force them to release him?
Again, I mean, I'm sorry, it must be a very boring response for you and your listeners, to viewers, where am I, to hear. But we cannot possibly know what the circumstances are. I mean, I'd put it slightly in a different way. The really bizarre thing, I mean, obviously, the North Korea is a very, very nasty regime. It doesn't respect human life at all, particularly that of its own citizens. It is normally a little bit more careful of foreigners, if only so that it can milk them as pawns in a chess game. Or in the past, about a dozen Americans in various circumstances have fallen foul of this regime over the last decade or so. They were usually reasonably treated by North Korean standards, and then very high-level visitors, former presidents Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter went. Maybe Obama would have been next. But so to let the guy, whatever the circumstances, he had a coma, it sounds like it had nothing to do with botulism, heart attack maybe, and then to sit on him for a year. And nobody knew. I don't think the Obama administration can be blamed for not knowing that. Nobody knew. We don't really know what the internal machinations of the North Korean regime, which perhaps is not as monolithic as we sometimes assume. Maybe one bit got scared and didn't tell another bit. I've heard that the foreign ministry in North Korea may not have known about this either. You know, with so many unknowns, I say it's a boring thing to say, but it's the truth. For the people to weigh in so confidently, I mean, it seems to me quite wrong. I am glad. I mean, I think, as I say, kudos to President Trump that for the last few days of his sadly cut short life, young Mr. Warmbier did get home. But beyond that, I think it would be much more decorous to preserve a common front and some human decency.
And what would you say, what about the people who are going to North Korea as tourists after seeing what happened to Mr. Warmbier? Today, the tour company that Otto Warmbier was connected to announced that it would no longer accept U.S. citizens for travel to North Korea. Is that something that is what we've seen with Mr. Warmbier? Should that just basically scare people away and not consider North Korea as a place to vacation in?
Well, actually, no. And again, this is a complex question, but at least it's sort of ethically complex, and we can pretty much the debate rages all the time. There are those who think that nobody ought to go to such a regime, partly because you can never be completely safe, and also because you're in some ways propping it up and supporting it. I tend to think, although somewhat jolted by the fate of Otto Warmbier, which is unprecedented, that no, everybody should go maybe once. I'm not sure why you would go more than once. Everyone should actually see the place. I don't think it actually changes it at all. And I think it is still true, as the tour guides, who obviously they're in a pretty difficult position. Now it's possible the US government may ban US travel. Most travelers, that said, are not the US. But I think that on the whole, if you don't do something like the late Mr. Warmbier is alleged to have done, if you or plant a Bible somewhere, other cases that we've had in the past, if you do the normal stuff, you're okay. And I don't think that changes. But it is a jolt, and you cannot but wonder at such a regime that has quite apart from no humanity, we knew that, but just no sense of how stuff plays in the modern world, how public relations, how image, how anything works. It is unutterably bizarre. Could I say that what I hope it will focus attention on is he's only one. The late Warmbier was one of 3 Americans, and there are half a dozen South Koreans. There's a Canadian, 1 or 2 others maybe detained there. I hope the focus will now be on, I hope President Trump and others will work just as hard to release 3 Americans who happen to be all called Kim, they're Korean Americans, as he boasts of having done for the late Otto Warmbier. Those, as far as we know, those people are alive. Let's hope we can get them out and they don't share Otto Warbier's fate.
Yeah, that is something I think we all hope this evening. Mr. Aidan Foster Carter, as always, we appreciate you being on the day. Thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, in the United States, lawmakers left little doubt about who they blame for Warmbier's death. Republican Senator John McCain, writing on Facebook, "Let us state the facts plainly. Otto Warmbier, an American citizen, was murdered by the Kim Jong-un regime. In the final year of his life, he lived the nightmare in which the North Korean people have been trapped for 70 years. Forced labor, mass starvation, systematic cruelty, torture, and murder." His Republican colleague Marco Rubio wrote, "Otto Warmbier should never have been in jail for tearing down a stupid banner, and he most certainly should not have been murdered for it." Meanwhile, President Trump receiving praise for securing Warmbier's release. Jeb Sanford, a football player from Dakota State, on Twitter writing, "If Obama gets credit for the killing of Osama bin Laden, Trump can take credit for North Korea releasing Otto Warmbier." Well, others were less diplomatic. This Trump supporter pinned the blame squarely on President Obama. "The most disgusting thing about the Otto Warmbier ordeal is that Obama left him over there to die."